everybody to the July 14th Oshkosh Parks Board meeting. Trish, can you call the roll?
Fitzgerald.
Here.
Kierans.
Here.
Bogoleski.
Here.
Michelson.
Here.
Miller. Rule.
Here.
Schussler.
Here.
Wilson. Bowler.
Here. Okay, we have a quorum, 1, 2, yes, we do.
Yep.
Okay, in the mail, you got the minutes of the June 9th meeting. Any additions or corrections? Seeing none, I need a motion. Terry, second by
Second.
Vic. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. All right, tonight, we have two items on the Parks Board business, and I'm sure we're going to have some citizen statements on these, but we'll call the citizens forward as we go through them. So, first on the agenda is discuss and recommend fees for special events utilizing park facilities. At this point, I'll turn it over to Ray.
All right. Thanks, Bill. As the board remembers, last month we had some initial discussion regarding the potential establishment of some fees for the special events that utilize essentially the entire park. The majority of those events are held at South Park and Menominee Park. What we did since then is we mailed out a letter. A copy of the letter was attached in your packet to those special events that this would potentially affect. Just to step back, this was a recommendation, the potential for the board to take a look at instituting such a fee when the Common Council held a workshop back in this past January regarding the special events ordinance and policy. And the reason that the council and staff feel it might be in the best interest of the city to consider such a fee is in a couple of items. In fairness to citizens, when they want to utilize a park facility, whether it's for a picnic or a family reunion, if they're going to utilize those park shelters, they're required to pay the rent for those park shelters for each day that they plan to utilize those. In addition, when a large event takes place, we are not able to rent out a number of those facilities to citizens because the special event essentially consumes the entire park. So what we're looking to do is recoup, even though it's not a lot of revenue, to recoup some of the rental revenue that we're losing when these special events are taking place. But also, I think it's more of a fairness to the citizens of Oshkosh that if they were to utilize the shelters during those times or for their event, they're required to pay the rentals. What I did in the letter that went out to the groups, and I gave you an idea, there is only about a handful of groups that this would essentially affect. And I know that I had been contacted by a couple of those groups, and they're probably here to speak their side and their opinions on this, and we'll be glad to hear those. Give you an example for South Park, as I did in the memo. If we have a Saturday, Sunday special event that takes place, what we would recommend is that all of the facilities down there, meaning the gazebo, shelter number 1, shelter 2, and shelter 3, would be required to be rented out. Essentially, the special event would be renting out the entire park and those facilities for their use. If those, taking a look at the rates that we currently charge for those days, because they're weekend days, the rate's a little bit higher. But really for a Saturday, Sunday, we're looking at a total fee of $440 to rent out the facilities at South Park. Just to give you an idea, because I know Sawdust Days is one of the larger events and would be affected by this, and Menominee Park, I did provide you with maps both of South Park and Menominee Park so that when the special event organizers are up talking to you, you'll have some idea where the shelters are that are being referenced, as well as when I reference them in my memo. For Sawdust Days, if we take a look at shelter number 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and the gazebo, and just looking at the 8 days essentially that they had use of the park this year, and charging the weekday rental rates and the weekend rental rates or the holiday rates, I figured it would be about a $2,100 charge for the entire 8 day of Sawdust Days. So they would, if this fee were instituted for next year, it would roughly be a cost of about $2,100 to Sawdust Days. I am open to any questions, or Bill, or however you'd like to handle this. If there's questions that the board has for me first, or if you want to go to citizens.
Probably what I'd like to see do is representatives of anybody here that, from Sawdust Days or from probably the art people, would like to speak on this before we turn it over to the board, and the board might have some questions for you. So if there's anybody that would like to come up and speak.
Here.
Yes, give us your name and address, and try to limit it to 5 minutes. I know.
Yeah, I might be a bit over, but I'll try and keep
Okay.
it sweet and short. Robert Kiawa, Kujawa, on behalf of Oshkosh Sawdust Days, and that would be P.O. Box 436, Oshkosh 54903. For clarity, and so all of you know, I am not a resident of Oshkosh, but I am completing a 250-mile round trip to be with you here tonight and to speak on behalf of our event. I've been involved with the event probably close to 15 years now, joined tonight by our chair, Ellen Schmidt, my father, Don, who is on the board, and Randy Larson, who is also part of the committee. So I'd like to talk to you a little bit about this proposal. First of all, I'd like to say thanks to staff. It was a kind of a difficult year with all the rain and water this year, and we've got a great working relationship, I think, with the Parks Department and all the city departments, really, and kind of worked through those things and hope we left the park fairly close to how we found it. And thanks to everybody for the help in working with us in making changes and those things in advance of the event happening this year. I'd also just like to tell everybody that a number of the vendors that we have, every year they tell me when they're here that this is really their favorite location to be at. They love Menominee Park. It's one of their favorite settings of all the events they go to, so you should all be proud of that and the work that's been done on that park. All that said, we are here tonight to oppose this item. We'd ask you to vote no on this. We think there's times when there's going to be large community events to be held in these community parks. And we think the parks should be available for these uses as well and not have to incur an additional fee to do that. For us, this would be a significant increase to our operating budget. I know it's not a lot for the city, but in our budget it is. We have faced increases because of some changes that were made in the past few years to the extraordinary costs that are now billed to the event. So this would just be adding on to that again, and it would make it more difficult for us to continue to hold the event with this increase. I would point out that our event provides free space rental to several organizations in the community. And those are to raise funds, including the Oshkosh Area Humane Society, several churches, the AMVETS. We are a nonprofit organization, and basically, when it's all said and done, we have a zero balance when we get done with the event. I'd also point out that the electrical equipment that Sawdust Days owns is used by other events and organizations throughout the year, and we don't charge for those things. Just this past weekend, one of the panels that was installed for our event was left in Menominee Park for use by the sailboat regatta. And there have been other events. That one is every year, and there have been other events, including some at the convention center and that area in the past, where we have provided time and people to take care of that, getting those to those events and helping out in those ways as well. So, you can layer on more fees and charge more, but then things like that are going to have to change, and we're not going to be able to provide those types of things to organizations at no cost. And they're significant. The panel that was used by the sailboat regatta, the current replacement cost on that one panel is $2,000. We own 12 of those. So it's significant. Those panels, all 12 of them are used by Celebration of Lights. And again, we have a sharing arrangement with them. They have a set of 100 amp panels that we use at our event, and they use the 200 amp at their event. So keep in mind that beyond the time of our event, we are providing assets to the community and other events as well. We've also made capital contributions in the park, which you may or may not be aware of, including a number of the upgraded electrical panels. This was done some time ago, but that has enhanced the park. There's also a lot of underground wiring that was done, and a lot of that is also utilized by Celebration of Lights. So over the years, we've made significant financial contribution to the infrastructure of Menominee Park, and hope that has some value to the city and community users as well. My concern a little bit with this fee is that it may be inconsistent in its application. Are we going to start charging the farmers market for using Main Street? I know you guys are focused on parks, but I think the city's going to need to take a look at consistent application if you're going to start charging fees for use of city facilities. The street's city facility, it's closed, I can't drive down it. So I would ask, that's maybe something for Ray to take up and beyond the scope of this board, but it seems inconsistent to us. I'd also say, too, in the calculation that he provided you for our event, I really doubt that you guys have 100% occupancy on weekdays. Yet you're going to bill us, or at least the proposal is you would bill us on weekdays for all of those shelters. And I'm sure we could go through the summer rental period and we'd probably never find a weekday where all of those facilities were rented out. So if you think this is a good idea, I think there needs to be some modification to the application, potentially on weekdays, that it's a percentage of what the total could be. I don't know if that's 25% or a third, but I'm pretty positive that you wouldn't have 100% rental. I'd also point out that included in the memo, there's 2 shelters that don't even fall within our designated areas and certainly would be available for use. I believe it's numbers 2 and 3 at Menominee Park are not in the areas that we designate in our special event application. Again, it may be inconsistent or unfair application of the fees in those areas. And I'd also point out we've asked nicely the last 2 years, but the Parks Department does operate their concession stand at the lighted softball diamonds in direct competition to the vendors that we have and the fees that we're collecting. That happens on the 4th of July on the fireworks day. And again, if you want to layer on more fees, you've got that thing out there that you guys are opening up and competing against our event, yet you want to charge us more fees. We obviously we love the facility. We want to continue to be at Menominee Park. It's a great facility for our event. It's a unique event in Oshkosh, we think. And we certainly want to continue our partnership with the city and the community. And we just feel that these fees are not the way to do it. So be happy to answer any questions when you're ready to, or...
Okay, hang on. Is there anybody else from Sawdust Days that has anything else to add other than what has been stated? Okay. Don't go too far away, though.
I won't.
Okay.
Ellen Schmidt, 4303 Swallowbanks Lane, Oshkosh, Wisconsin, 54904. I guess my question is, how often do people request the shelters? And are the shelters rented every other weekend, as Bob said? We provide this family festival, and there's lots of free entertainment. And, we have all volunteers to make this happen. And that's the only way that we are able to pay for what we have to pay for. There are significant charges that come to us between toilets, garbage, the city, the police security, there are things that we can't get sponsorship for. And I believe if there is really somebody who comes and wants to rent one of the shelters that's not in our specific area, and Bob is in charge of parking. I think that we could make an accommodation if there's really some request. But I'm not aware that, I've never heard anybody, and I've been around way too long. I've been involved with Sawdust Days for 43 years, and I've been chairman for 29. And I've never heard anybody complain to me that they couldn't use a shelter because we were there. So if there is a request, I believe we could make parking accommodations and make it happen. So the fee to us for shelters that we're really not using, I think, is above and beyond. We already pay for so many things. I mean, last year I was surprised, and I guess it's understandable. The city is trying to recoup some of their expenses, but we even got charged for toilet paper in the permanent toilets. And there wasn't always toilet paper there, whereas we provide toilets that have always toilet paper in. So I know that's a silly thing, but for a lady, that's important. But anyway, we do our best to try and make this a wonderful event. I hope Oshkosh is proud of the event. I know we have people come from far away. The Convention Bureau has made an estimate of about $13 million that is brought into the city. And if you keep on adding fees to our event when we're so not-for-profit, it's going to make it more and more challenging, and maybe we would not be able to continue. I don't know. It just always depends. Weather depends on whether we have people come down there and spend money. And so it's very important to us to try and keep our expenses as minimal as we can. We do everything we can with volunteers, but it's up to you people, and I appreciate all the support we've had in the past, but it's up to other entities that we don't have any control over to take this into their thoughts that perhaps we won't do this. Any questions?
Okay, anybody else from Sawdust Days? Okay, now, I want to turn it back to the board. Is there any questions that you have for either Bob or Sean?
Mr. Kelvin, do you know approximately how much the organization was paying in fees the last 2 years and has now for the extraordinary city services, the barricades, police, and fire protection? Or more?
It was, well, the parks was about 6,000 last year. The police was about, was it 14 or 15,000?
$15,000.
Yeah.
It was $19,000 altogether, and I have the
So it was 13 plus 6, I think, then.
And there was, some of that was associated with parks?
That's direct costs related to our staff time, doing cleanup or helping to haul benches, trash receptacles, and so forth. So that's direct staff time that's charged to them.
We provide garbage bags for our people to clean up. That was $372. Somehow we bought snow fencing for $192.58, and the toilet paper was $259. Let's see. The street barricades, $125, and parks and staff was $5,983.24, and department materials, parks
That's what she
department
just
materials.
referenced.
That's what I referenced, and the police officer hours, because we hired private security, was $12,124.96.
That's city police, though.
Right, that's
That
city
doesn't
police.
include
No, that doesn't include the
Private security.
private security that we paid
It's about another
over
$8,000.
$8,000 plus the night security, which is another $3,000. So it adds up very quickly. And we do cleanup afterwards. We do neighborhood cleanup. We do all the cleanup all over. So, I mean, we pay for all of that.
Any other, Vic?
I just wonder, do you obtain revenue from what, ticket sales or a revenue to the vendors that are there?
Vendors primarily. It's a free event, so there's no admission fee.
Vendors and sales of product from our own tents. We have 2 tents for Sawdust Days. The other amounts that are taken in are for AMVETS, Vietnam veterans, as he said before, the not-for-profit organizations. We have nothing to do with that.
And then a percentage of the Midway or, the carnival is another revenue.
They pay you a percentage for having set up?
Yes, they do.
So those are the primary three would be our food, beer, soda sales, carnival percentage, and then our vendors.
Harry?
Good event. I have no problem with it whatsoever. The thing I want to know is, what do you give back to the city? Just for my own, I know there's different events that are held in the park, but they also contribute back to the city, where someone that's renting a shelter isn't contributing back to the city. Now, I know you've got the electrical things and everything, that's a big deal. I mean, the lights share it and everything else. How much do you contribute money towards the fireworks?
The fireworks no longer is under our purview. The city takes their 12.5, and Festival Foods does the other 12.5. Unfortunately, 2 years ago, we had really hot weather, and we went $20,000 in the hole. So it took us until this year, which I hope we're going to come out with more of a
A buck or two left.
a buck or two left. And in the past, we have donated to the zoo. I don't have the figures right before me, but I think we've donated about $20,000 to the zoo. So if we put in $30,000 in the infrastructure for electric and also $20,000 for the zoo, that's about $50,000. But we've had a couple of years of really bad weather. It's been too hot. And when you have a weather event, if it's too cold, too wet, too whatever it
This
is.
is a free event for the whole city that you're putting on. Plus, you're putting money back into the parks, back into the city for the electrical boxes and everything else.
Absolutely.
I do agree with the other thing is that you don't rent those. I mean, Trish can figure that out in probably 30 seconds. Rent, during the week, you rent those shelters out.
I had to turn people away.
During the week,
During the week, during Saturdays, days, I have had to.
No, I mean the rest of the week. I mean,
I do
they're
get
rented
rented.
out every week?
I
Every day during the
consistently
week?
every week. There's some days that it's not rented, but there are groups that rent during the week.
And as we said, if there is a group that wants to rent it out, we would make accommodations for parking.
Yes.
We've done other parking areas that have been easily, taken care of. And so if you know of that and that happens, we'd be happy to make the accommodation.
Yeah, and I really think.
How would you accommodate the parking?
Well, we could designate, if you had a group coming in, we could find out how many they were going to have, and we could designate those stalls if we needed to.
And then if I came in and said, oh, I'm with that group over there, but I really wasn't, you wouldn't know.
Short of, I guess we could provide a pass. I mean, to be honest with you, on the weekdays is kind of where I have more of a problem with. Not so much on the weekend, but on the weekdays. There isn't a parking issue on Pratt Trail, so to charge us for numbers 2 and 3, it just doesn't make sense to me. There's no parking issue over there, and those two shelters are not in the areas designated under our request to the city for the use of the park. I guess if you think this is a good idea, I'd ask, that there be some consideration to remove those from the fees we would have to pay.
And as I said, we already have parking passes that are available. If Trish knows that there's a family that wants to come in and rent the shelter and they want to have it, we can certainly accommodate it. We would just block off the parking somehow and we'd have to provide some volunteers to make sure it happened that way, but we would certainly do it.
Have you ever crossed your mind about, has this event gotten too large? I remember back, you can see the gray hair, I can remember back when this thing started and how it was just representing the history of Oshkosh with the logging and everything else. And that's when even the city put on the fireworks. They hired a company to come in, and the city workers would help set that all up. And now it's grown to what it is today, and I'm just wondering, has the event gotten too large?
If I may say so, I have been there since the second year. I know what you speak of. We started out with a merry-go-round and a Ferris wheel. And it was simply, there were the Marine Corps League and the AMVETS, and then the Tavern League, and it was simply a beer bash. We have worked very, very hard to make this a more unique festival, more complementary to Oshkosh. We've enhanced it because people will come down if there's something new and different. The Midway has enlarged, certainly. There are many areas that have enlarged, but we've included different ethnic groups. We've included more not-for-profit groups, and that's the way progress is. If you keep it the same and small, it would die because there would be nothing for anybody to come down there for. We have lots of food vendors. We have lots of different dry goods vendors that sell sunglasses, et cetera. We have the flea market. I mean, over the years, we've added things to enhance it, to make it a community festival that Oshkosh could be proud of. And therefore, we have people come. I mean, they call me on the telephone and say, I'm coming from Minnesota, I'm coming from Illinois, I want to know what's going on because we're planning our vacation around Sawdust Days. Now, if you want this to be an event city, this is an event. And it's an important event, and an important event to a lot of people that come here. And so if you're going to keep raising the fees till we no longer can afford it, then, so be it. But we are here to defend our position and say that we want Sawdust Days to continue and continue in a good way.
And I think, too, I don't think actually our footprint has shrunk a little bit. The use of the areas of the park, the History Village on the lakeshore side is actually smaller than it was probably going back. I mean, it's probably 12 years or more, but we used to go further around the lakeshore with that, and that has shrunk back towards the Kiwanis shelter. And the rest of it, I don't think has changed. We're using the same areas we've used for the last 10 or 12 years. I don't think so. We may have more people coming. I don't know if that's what you mean by growth, but physically, the physical size of the park that we use has not changed, and is actually, I would say, reduced a little bit over on the History Village side. I mean, it's insignificant, but it's slightly smaller. If you remember, we used to fence all the way. That fencing used to run all the way down, and that whole History Village was
But even
closed over there.
our main area has not changed in 20 years.
Yeah.
Any other questions from the board? Okay, seeing none, thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Art fair people, I'm sure you want your turn. We'll probably focus more on South Park now.
My name is Joy Moon, 4974 Lansing High Point, Oshkosh, Wisconsin. I'm here representing the Oshkosh Fine Art Association. We have been an organization since 1950. We are the oldest art fair in the state of Wisconsin. We started our art fair in 1957. So that's 57 years of an art fair in Oshkosh. Our nonprofit club has enjoyed continued cooperation with the ever-changing rules and regulations of the Parks Department and the city. We feel we have a good partnership and we are good stewards of South Park. In order to bring the park up to our art fair standards, we've taken on additional expenses, such as extra porta potties, sink stations. We also provide soap and paper toweling in the existing bathroom. We provide huge dumpsters and trash cans, auxiliary police, city police, barricades, park signs, damage waiver, and of course advertising. Our last year's art fair expenses came to $4,783, and that does not include the $500 that we give out as awards. We also take out a $1 million insurance policy every year just in case somebody might get hurt at South Park. In the past, we have donated permanent park benches to South Park to show our appreciation. Our mission as the Oshkosh Fine Art Association is to support the arts in Oshkosh and the surrounding area. Last year, we donated $4,333 in scholarships. And over the years, we have also added monies that go to public and private art institutions such as the Payne Arts Center, the Oshkosh Public Museum, and any art project that's going on in the community such as Pollock Pool and many others. So our money does go back to support our community. We provide the opportunity for artists and food vendors to sell their wares and to make a living, which also funnels back into the community. The park usage during our fair, the gazebo, the tennis courts, the horseshoe pits, the children's play area, were all heavily used the day of our fair. The two smaller shelters could certainly be rented out to other groups during that Saturday or Sunday. I'm curious as to how many requests have come in for those two smaller shelters for the day of our fair. We only use the large shelter for 2 days. Saturday is our setup day and Sunday is the fair day, which we pay for both of these days as it stands right now. We only use the southwest corner of South Park, which is about a quarter of the park. If you are expecting us to rent all of the shelters and the gazebo, then how do you propose to close the park for the 2 days, since in essence we are paying for the complete utilization of the park? There seems to be an inequity in pricing for smaller events such as ours and huge groups that pay minimal amounts. If the OFAA is expected to pay for each shelter and gazebo for the art fair, our club would face an additional financial burden. We are happy to pay for the large shelter for our 2 days of use. And please remember that we are a volunteer organization and we are also nonprofit. And I'm hoping that you'll consider voting no on this. Any questions?
Is there anybody else that would like to speak on other than what? Okay, she's fine. Sean?
Ms. Moon, I just have the same question for you that I had for the Sawdust Days, but your extraordinary costs at your event has faced the last 2 years. You recall approximately what those were?
Almost $5,000.
Per year? Or
Yes, per year for the art fair event that we put on.
Can I just ask for clarification? Are those extraordinary costs paid to the city?
Many are. For instance, the auxiliary police, the city police, the barricades, the parking signs, damage waiver. That is not all. That's also our advertising costs, as well as porta potties and things
So
like that.
those are all your
Yeah, and
expenditures?
I guess I was
So that
curious.
I just lumped it all together
I guess
totally.
I was curious, those expenses relative to the city that were just imposed when the city implemented the special arts policy.
I'm sorry, I don't have that broken down exactly.
Do you know approximately what you paid for?
I'm guessing it could be close to $2,000. Thank you.
Questions?
Your income comes from?
Our income comes from the entry fee, and most of that entry fee goes to pay for the things I've discussed, as well as goes into our fund for the awards that we give out. Every dollar we make goes back into the community for scholarships. We also donate for the teacher's closet and just many other things that are in need around the country and around our county in terms of, need in the art community. So we donate art supplies to a lot of the art schools, for instance. The high schools, the middle schools, they don't have any art supplies, so we help them out. So we're trying to keep art in our community as best we can, and this is the way we do it, by having our art fair. Yes?
Go ahead. So you had mentioned before that you're already paying for your use of the park. Is that what you're referring to as these fees that you're paying to the city? Or are there additional fees that you're paying for your use of the park that you haven't clarified yet?
Well, in addition to our fee for the pavilion, we also pay for the auxiliary police and barricades and that sort of thing. But then we have other things that we need to pay for, the additional porta potties and the sink stations and, other things that come up like that, so that we feel our art fair is a comfortable situation for everybody. And then we also do take out our insurance policy as well.
I haven't attended this event, so I'm not, you said that you just use shelter one. and
Yes,
that's-
the largest shelter.
Just use a quarter of the park. So
Yes.
if someone wanted to rent, say, shelter three, does your event take up all the parking? Would that make it difficult? For
No one
someone-
is allowed to park inside the park during our fair, only on the outside. That smaller shelter closest to the large pavilion, there's a small little parking area right there that is not used by us whatsoever. None of our vendors are over there, so that would be totally open, as well as that other shelter closer to Ohio Street.
Okay, as far as parking, number 3 doesn't have any parking. Oh, there you go. You thought you were off the hook, huh? Yeah, not going to happen. As far as the parking goes, shelter number 3 doesn't have any parking. People have to park on the street
Yes.
anyway. And when your event goes on, there isn't, people just kind of stay away from South Park anyway.
And generally along that street, the city wants to put up no parking signs so that it is more open for traffic. So people park over at South Park School quite a bit and on the side streets.
I'm saying that people won't rent shelter 3 because of there is no parking. Normally they can park close to that shelter. And we're trying to remedy that with our master plan, but that's
Well,
Year-
again,
years out,
and
so.
I do understand that is a concern, and
Yeah.
it's a concern for our fair as well, because of the location of the park. But the thing that I would really like to ask is, how many times has that shelter been requested? I don't think it has.
Well, I don't, if I was going to rent the shelter and I knew the art fair was going on, I wouldn't even request it because I knew there wouldn't be any parking. There wouldn't be a place for my guests to come because
I
all
understand.
the parking's taken up by the art fair. And I'm not against your event. I think it's great. But I think that we got to look at South Park as being a smaller park and it really utilizes most of the park. And I haven't been down in a number of years, but I don't know about usage over at the tennis courts and everything else.
Well, I can tell you that during our fair, the tennis courts were used all day, the horseshoe pits, families were in the children's playground all day. They were also attending our fair. So the grounds itself was heavily used by the community that day, heavily used. And that's been the case for 57 years.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Is there anybody else that wants to speak on a special event utilization fees? Okay, seeing none, to turn it back over to the board. Discussion? John?
Can I ask a question of Ms. Marks? I know a couple of people had alluded to the fact that they were doubting what kind of demand there was for the shelters on weekdays, weekends of these particular events. I mean, you obviously have probably the best handle on that of anyone in here. Can you give us a bit of an assessment of what kind of demand, what kind of demand there would be or is for those shelters, I guess, on weekends, on weekdays?
Well, I get requests all the time for shelter rentals during those events, and I'll say, the art fair is down there. Oh, well, I don't want to be down there for that. Like shelter number 3, people, when they rent that at South Park, we usually allow them access to unload and load their vehicles or their shelter stuff from their vehicle. If the art fair is there, they block it off, people would not be able to load or unload, let alone park. I do get a lot of people calling and wanting to rent those shelters, and I have to turn them away. It's a full-time job, and to monitor for parking, like passes or whatever, that would be unrealistic. Not knowing where the families are coming from, some are out of town, how many people are coming to their event. I wouldn't know how many parking passes to make. It's just unrealistic.
Do you know, just as a follow-up question, are there facilities available at some of the other parks in the community?
I do recommend other parks.
And is there usually availability?
Sometimes. Other times I have to turn people away. And I've turned people away today for certain events because there's something going on and they can't use that park. But I offer other entities for them to take. But, yeah.
I just have a question for Trish, kind of along that line. Like on a weekend between Menominee and South Park, let's start with weekends. I would assume that most of the shelters are probably, in those events are probably full or fairly close to full?
There's not a weekend in June, July, or August that those shelters are rented already.
Okay. All right, that's good. How about, if you had to give a percentage of weekdays, what would you, if you were just to guess, I mean, it's just an estimate, what would your estimate be during weekdays of those same shelters? I know it's hard because.
It is hard, 35, 40%.
Okay.
And
I mean, that's what I'm thinking too.
Some are
That's
just-
some are going to be booked, some aren't, but weekends would be definitely busy.
Yeah,
I mean,
and there's
they're-
some organization or service organizations that want to use them for a couple of hours during the day,
Okay.
but they still can't use them.
Okay, thank you.
I have one question too. And this, I guess, would pertain more, well, I guess anybody. Because I do kind of see the point. I've attended Sawdust Days sporadically throughout my years. And on the big holidays or a weekend, I can see where, I mean, it's just crazy and there's no use. But I guess have we figured out how we're going to determine whether they need to rent the entire park or just half of it? Because I guess what I'm saying is I know some, Sawdust Days goes over a certain amount of days, and there's a lot of weekdays where there probably isn't really much concern with parking or usage on that other end. So I would feel kind of bad charging.
But if you were a family or reunion or something, would you want to rent a shelter knowing that there's a festival going on? A lot of people are turned off by that.
I guess I just mean more,
It's hard for us to say that all 5 areas in Menominee Park should be part of this, but I think it's harder for us to say which ones shouldn't be included. I guess what we're looking at is how other communities have handled this and said that it's been successful for them to say, all right, you're going to rent out all these facilities because they could be potentially rented. I'll take a look at the boat launch, and I'm surprised Jim Michelson didn't bring this up. During Sawdust Days, the boat launch is pretty much off limits. There's some limited access to it. However, if we take a look at the month of June or July, on a typical month, we'll bring in anywhere from $2,000 to $2,500 at the boat launch. If it's out of commission for a week, we're essentially losing $500 to $700 for that week at the boat launch. We're not looking to try to recoup that. Somebody had made a comment that we do operate the concession stand on the 4th of July fireworks. That does help with some of the revenue for us because the softball leagues aren't playing for those 8 nights. We would typically have 8 nights of softball being played where we do generate revenue at the concession stand again. We're not looking to try to split hairs and say we feel that we could make money in these areas and we're not. We're thinking that this is the fair and most consistent way to try to handle it and be consistent across the park system.
Okay, thank you.
And we do bring, typically, if you look through the revenue for softball, we bring in about $200 to $300 a night, depending upon, of course, weather, weather dependent. The cooler weather, the rains, we don't bring in much. But an average night, I'd really say, is between $250 and $300 a night that we bring in that we don't during that time.
Any other questions? Vic?
Now, am I to understand that Sawdust Days paid for all those electrical improvements in the park, down in Menominee Park. I know I was down there for that Festival of Lights, and I helped check out all those electrical panels and stuff like that down there, and it's quite an investment that somebody made down there.
The panels are, as Bob alluded to, they are Sawdust Days property, and they take those and they store them wherever they store those for the off-season. And they do work arrangements with other groups that may want to use those. So if they work out an agreement with Celebration of Lights or somebody at the convention center, yeah, that's their property, and they have the right to take it or let whoever use it.
Any other questions, discussions? John?
Just one other question, and Mr. Maurer, I know you had kind of done an analysis of what amounts were generated here using this model with South Park for 2 days. Given, you had identified, I think, 4 groups or 5 groups, essentially, that this potential policy change could affect.
Correct.
Is there a cumulative total for revenue that'd be generated versus, I guess, what those groups are already paying in terms of?
Well,
I guess I'm looking essentially what the net, what kind of the net proceeds from a policy like this.
Net proceeds, I would say, would be less than $4,000 to $5,000. Jim?
Yeah, I still have some of the concerns I had last meeting about this, and one of them was charging for, how do you determine, I know there's only a few groups, but how do you determine whether you charge them for all the shelters in a park or some of the shelters in the park? And that was a good point that was brought up tonight about that not all the shelters are rented like during the weekdays. And so, how many shelters would you be charging for? I know that right now we're talking about all of them, but I don't think that's fair, personally. And then what percentage would you use? And I know we're focusing only on just a handful of groups here, but I think you have to think of the future too. There's maybe some group that's going to start up something, and it's going to be just barely enough to do something, but are you going to charge them for all the shelters then? So I guess I have issues with this proposal the way it is today. I guess if it could be worked on a little more, I might be more in favor of it, but at this point in time, I guess I have some reservations.
Harry?
I agree with Jim. I don't like it at all. And that's mainly because the groups that you're talking about, I don't know who the other groups are, but they're giving back to the city. You talk about, like Vic said, those electrical panels with Sawdust Days has contributed throughout the years and everything else. And you're talking about $4,000. That isn't going to break anybody one way or the other. Why they came up with this, I have no clue. I mean, and like you said, if you're charging people for something that probably isn't going to be rented anyway, I don't like that part of it. But I don't like the part of it, if you have groups, bigger groups, that actually give back to the city what they can. Sawdust Days can give more, whatever other groups, I don't know what they are, but maybe they give more. But if they're giving back to the city anyway, and if they give $5,000 or $10,000, that's more than you're going to make off the shelter rent anyway. This, to me, is nitpicking. I'm not crazy about any of these fees anyway, but they're here to stay, so you put up with them and you do it. But to bring more and more and more and more all the time, I don't go along with that at all. I wouldn't vote for this ever. I mean, as far as Sawdust Days go, look at the money it brings into the city, and then you're going to charge them another $2,000, which isn't going to put this city, I mean, you aren't going to be able to budget for another street because you got $2,000. Let's face it, it's not that big a deal. Why this was brought up, the council brought it up. I think they better go back to the drawing board. I wouldn't vote for this.
I agree with Terry and Jim also. With the donations like Sawdust Days, I know that the electrical system they help put in and the other things they do down there, I don't know why we should penalize them more by charging them.
And
John?
I'll go ahead as well around the horn here. But I understand that this came from the council, and really not as a measure to raise additional revenue, but to try and provide some fairness across how the city parks are used. But I also can't support it. I think, it really strikes me as being penalizing to a couple of institutions that, frankly, have been doing some things in this community, longer than I've been alive, and they've been good contributions to our community. I think if we get into a practice of starting to charge groups, any group, the total cost of using all of the facilities within that park, I think that organization really would be able to claim some rights to ownership of the park during that event and be able to control how every aspect of the park is used during the event, and I know that's a slippery slope we don't want to get into. I think a good point is brought up as well about this may be leading to questions about how the streets are utilized by other organizations that are hosting parades, hosting basketball tournaments, farmers market that's become popular in the community, and I don't think the community is ready to start implementing a charge for that as well. So I understand where this was coming from my colleagues on the council, but I'm not going to be able to support it, at least in this forum here today.
All right, since we're going around the table. I do see both sides of it. I think knowing now that the total revenue that we're out is really not a huge chunk of money definitely raises some concern because there are some groups that give back. I think in my eyes, I see it more as a situation of not revenue to be gained, but revenue lost out on when someone else wants to rent that same facility for those days. So I don't know if it's something we need to look at where if revenue is completely lost for an event because they take their event to another city or whatever, because we can't rent it during these timeframes, is there something that we then need to look at this again and see what the implications of that lost revenue could be? But I think for now, the way that this is being proposed probably isn't the best solution.
Carrie, you're left.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just, I'm really on the fence, but I guess to be cautious, just because, I mean, they are good events and there aren't a lot of them. I mean, we're not talking about every other weekend, that kind of thing. Yeah, this is a hard one for me, but I guess I would just probably lean for caution, and maybe it could be brought up again another time if we were just losing so much revenue, or, I mean, it was really a lot of money.
Seeing that the groups that affected are here, and I appreciate you people coming, and you brought up some very good points, and I think points that the board listened to. And I'm not willing to support this either at this time. So with that, we can probably go through with a motion for a vote. I don't even know if we need a motion. We just need to call for the vote because it is for a recommendation. Is that right, Trish?
Correct.
Okay. So if you would call for a vote on recommendation fees for special events utilizing park facilities, please.
Can we do that without a motion and a second?
Oh, yeah, we still need that, yeah.
It's on a.
I would make a motion, Bill, and they can vote how they'd like to vote.
And that's if you can get a second.
Correct.
That's if you can get a second.
Got to get one first.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we
can vote it down.
This is going to come to the council
Right.
at any rate, but
Right.
but the recommendation from.
Yeah, I mean, you can get somebody to bring it forward and second it just for a courtesy thing to vote on it, I suppose. Or
And
or
are you bringing it
if they're
as a
for it.
motion? Are you bringing it as a motion?
No.
We need a motion to bring it, to vote on it,
I'll
and
make
turn
a
it
motion to
down,
vote on it.
All right.
to send it to the council that we turned it down.
Correct.
Terry,
Okay, Vic?
I made a motion that we vote on it.
I'll second it then.
And Terry seconded it. Now, Trish, you can call the roll.
Fitzgerald.
No.
Aaron's.
No.
Vogaleski.
No.
Michelson.
No.
Rule. Schussler.
No.
And Bowler.
No.
Okay.
If I can just explain, and Sean, this is for the council members as well, what I would say is these groups would like to continue to let the council members be aware of your concerns, because it may come up during the budget process again. They may ask, did we take a look at it? And obviously, they'll know that we did take a look at it. I won't be bringing it forward to the council for an approval. What I would have done if it would have passed tonight, it would have been part of the budget process. The council would have looked at it as a fee or an increase in a fee for the budget revenue. So I think it may still be brought up potentially through the budget deliberation, so you'll want to stay in tune with that throughout September and November. The budget's officially adopted in November, but the process through the council will start in September.
Can you help us out and maybe make us aware again then if it sounds like it might be included? So we could.
I'm sure Ellen will know if it's been brought up.
Why do you say that? Am I allowed to ask a question now? Trish, if I may ask a question. Oh, I'm sorry.
People in TV land want to hear you.
If it's going to be a speculation answer, I don't want to answer.
Trish, on the day, on 4th of July, when you are open, how are the sales? Do you make a significant amount, or is it, is it more than a baseball game would be, or is it?
Are you talking concession stand?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Oh, Trish
be
would
Jenny.
know. I'm sorry.
I was going to say, ask Jenny that.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
We make I was on vacation last week, so I'm catching up. Today's my first day back since July 3rd. But last year we made exactly in between our average that we usually make. So like I said, it's typically between $250 and $300 for the days that were closed because of sawdust days. And that's exactly what we brought in last year, was between that range.
Okay.
So, and from what I've heard through staff, it was the same this year, but I have not verified that 100% myself yet. And again, this year is, if what I've been told is correct, it's between that range of what we bring in on an average night.
Okay. I was just curious. Thank you very much.
Okay. All right, moving on. Second, park business. Discuss and approve no parking on north side of Seaward Trail, Menominee Park near Diamond 8.
Hey, this gets no.
Thank you.
Thank you. Take off, yeah.
Okay, Ray?
Thank you. Thank you.
After the last meeting, board member Jim Michelson had asked that we bring this forward as a request of his. Jim, what I brought was a map of Menominee Park so that the board members had an idea where Seaward Trail and where you're talking. I know it's not the best, but I didn't have one that I could pull up here quickly. What Jim's asking is that the board consider where Seaward Trail comes in, and maybe,
Want me to hold it up?
yeah, why don't you hold that up and maybe point it?
Right up there.
Seaward Trail essentially comes into the park up by diamond number 8, which is north of the Reeds Ball Diamonds.
Way up.
And currently on the south side of Seaward Trail, when it goes back out to Hazel Street, is posted no parking.
So today, there's no parking on the south side of the street.
What Jim is asking us to consider is have no parking on the north side of Seaward Trail also, because I think what's happened is diamond number 8 has become a little more used by the adult softball, and people are parking in those stalls or in the traffic lane essentially, and it gets difficult, as Jim was saying, when the boat traffic tries to get in and out, if it's parked on one side of the street and only has one traffic lane essentially to be going through. So we brought it forward for your consideration, and if the board would like us to, because it's not a official city street, the streets within the park are considered private streets for the park. It would not go, I talked to the city attorney today, and we're debating if it would go to any other board or commission for recommendation, but we're thinking it might just go as part of an ordinance update to the common council, that we would post that as no parking and be able to enforce it, because we do need an ordinance so that it can be enforced in the future. So Jim, I don't know if there's anything further you want to add.
Yeah, as some of you may know, I live very close to the north side of Menominee Park, and I'm probably through the park almost daily, especially in the summer. And I started seeing a trend kind of starting last year where before that, I would very rarely ever see a car parked on the north side of the street there, of the trail, parked out on the street. And all of a sudden, starting last year, it started a little bit, and this year there's even more and more people that are parking their cars. Now, you do see during the school year, there'll be cars parked there when the school's open. For special events, you'll see some people parking there. But this summer trend I just started seeing last year, and it's just getting more and more and more. And some people, I don't know, as we were talking last week, just talking about this a little bit, some of it, especially this year, might be because of what? There's less regular parking in the lots, isn't there? Because of the new, there's more boat trailer parking that, especially this year, that's started up. And so what it's done is it's pushed traffic to start to park from time to time on the north side. And the north side, so now you have both sides with traffic, or you have the north side, well, let me go up here. Normally, there's no parking on the south side, and typically it wasn't signed, so people basically never parked there, other than special events at the school that I ever see. And now all of a sudden, we're starting to see in the summer, we're seeing people starting to park on the north side. And I know, for example, one day I was down there with my boat, and I think there was something going on with it at the park. There was something, it was still in May, there was something going on in the school. I started going up with my boat and my trailer. I go, oh boy. All of a sudden, if somebody turns the corner on Hazel, I'm going to be stuck because you can't get two cars by each other. There's only room for one car to go by. And I would have had to back my boat and my trailer back, and they would have had back, to do that. That would have been messy, And now even during the night, during a lot of ball games, you're starting to see cars starting to park in that area. The other thing I'm seeing is when cars do park there, there's a trail crossing right there. You have bikers and pedestrians, and the vision isn't good. You have a lot higher chance of somebody not being seen on a bike or a pedestrian, potentially getting hit crossing the trail because the visibility isn't good with cars being parked. One other thing to note, and we don't know when this will be, but I see in some of our information that redoing the parking lots is out, potentially not too many years out, where we're going to review that. And that would put a parking lot in this, in fact, it's shown on here. That would be a future parking lot, which could help alleviate this if, somewhere in the future. But we don't know when and if that will be. But it always was a parking only on the one side, but basically no one ever parked there. And now all of a sudden they're starting to park in the last year and a half or so. They're starting to park there is what's happening.
Gary?
Go ahead.
Would you say that they're parking there because it's just full and there isn't really any, have you noticed, are there other spots where they could actually be parking, but maybe it's just more for them to?
I don't know. Yeah, but now you have the new boat parking areas. I don't know if I'm totally up on where all the new ones are. Before, I would say sometimes there was parking available, but it's just kind of a trend now. People, I think, see, okay, we're at the North Ball Diamond there, the new diamond there, and it's convenient. But sometimes it may be out of necessity too. It's just kind of a growing trend. And once you see somebody parking there, you go, I think I'll park here. It kind of. And actually, there's two trail crossings. Yeah, the other trail crossing that goes out into the parking lot is another area that's being blocked in visibility. As people shoot out that way, there's also another crossing where it's getting blocked when people park there.
Harry?
I think it's because of the ball diamond myself, but
I don't. Yeah, the new ball to the north.
Yeah. Do you think that this has to be all year round, or?
I would think primarily June, July, and August would be the issues.
The reason I'm saying it is I think the school probably uses it an awful lot. In
the special events.
You're going to take a lot of parking away from the.
I wouldn't have an issue if it was basically just for the 3 summer months, June, July, August. There might be a little conflict in that end of May, but you're talking a short period of time. I don't know if you want to because that's when they're busy at the end of May, right before school gets out towards, but.
What I was going to ask was, would that be, because my office, for those of you who don't know, is in Menominee Park, so I'm in and out of there every day, 100 times a day. But what they always do there is that's where they stop to pick up their kids. So are you talking permanent parking or like waiting, because I don't even come in that entrance of the park. Like if I know it's around 2:30, 2:40, I just use other entrances because everybody's lined up there to pick up their kids and you can't get in there. So I don't, would it be permanent parking or would it be people waiting to pick up? How?
Well, June, July, and August, they aren't picking kids.
Well, they go to school till June 12th.
Yeah, that's the sticky part is.
So I don't know how you would handle that. And as far as parking there, I think, I agree. It's with the increase in use of diamond number 8 this year, that it's increasing parking there, because it is, for sure.
Or go ahead.
Or maybe because there's not enough parking, who knows. But I just know that that's a big, up until about June 12th, it's lined, with people picking up their kids. So we'd have to figure out what to do about that. Would it be permanent parking or people just waiting?
Or could it be a, 6 o'clock on or something?
Right.
Maybe we could do something like that. I'm not trying to inconvenience anybody else, but I see the potential for people trying to come and go, and believe me, once you're committed, two cars don't pass each other there.
That's why I don't.
And once you're committed, somebody's going to have to back up if it's full enough, which sometimes it is.
And even when people are picking up their kids, if you come into the park and they're wanting to leave with, with their child, and if someone else is trying to park, you can't, So I just need to be clear if that went forward to what, if it would be parking or waiting or what it would be. So.
Yeah, and I've also noticed the trail safety too. That's starting to become a bigger issue because 2 different openings for the trail, and when cars are right up tight to that, people can't see the people on bikes and pedestrians.
Now, to be clear on this, we don't have to go to the parking utilities, and is that what you said? We can put up.
Well, that's what the city attorney and I are going to bring it up at our next department head meeting to see the comfort level of all the department heads and the police chief and so forth. But we would have to put it in the ordinance, so whatever we draft or put in the ordinance is enforceable.
It would be enforced by boat rangers or police?
We would have to talk about that.
I mean, should we lay this over for one more meeting? I mean, I'm just
I guess
bringing up
I
the
wanna-
ideas of the issues I see. It's at night primarily the issues are, well, softball's going on. It's primarily summer, obviously. I mean, when softball season is, that's when there is going to be a little conflict in that early June time period, but and they may have an occasion, there might be like 1 or 2 special events, but I don't, at some point in time, you have to just say, well, but it's still, there's a lot of users, people in the park too. It's still really not perfectly safe doing that, with trail crossings and other things going on,
And I
regardless.
hate to put up more confusing signs down there because we're hearing about that all the time, how the signs in that parking lot are confusing already. So I guess we can not take action tonight, but I'd like a consensus on the board if, 1, they think that we should have no parking there, and 2, no parking with certain restrictions, what should those restrictions be? And then we can look at generating an ordinance change for that.
Just keep in mind, boat launch starts usually the end of March when the water opens.
Right.
And so the diamonds start always that last Sunday in April. So it actually would be an issue kind of from, April on until the end of October.
Yeah, you're right. And it has becoming more and more every year. It's just the last couple of years it's becoming.
And you get it during the day, seniors have their tournaments down there, softball, so that during the day, it's not after 6 o'clock.
What is it, Jenny, during the day more? Do you
They only, the seniors practice on Wednesdays, I believe it still is, Wednesday mornings.
see much congestion there during the day or not
No,
really?
It's low during it's about when the school day ends. So, I mean, like you said, if you put I agree with Ray, though, with the whole signage thing. We've tried so hard to try to, put stalls down there to make it more friendly to the boaters because we were so heavy on the complaints last year from the boaters. It is a multi-use lot. We have to deal with that. So we've tried so hard to make it for everybody to use, and still I see, parking, requests to review your parking citations every day from complaints, So that part of it, adding more signs and more rules down there is hard, but I understand what you're saying as far as the trail crossings. That is certainly a concern, and it is getting more congested because, like I said, I don't come in that entrance. I use the main entrance or Merritt Street. So But just to think about it, by the end of April, we're full swing with everything. And that goes from the last Sunday in April all the way through October then.
Could we just go around and get people's opinion? They're against it, they're for it, they're for certain, sport for certain hours, and just get a general opinion. I'm just bringing it up as an issue. I think something needs to be done, but I said I don't have a concrete, idea of exactly, exactly.
Just another question I have, and I don't know, Jim, if you have a sense of this, or Ms. Farr, if you have a sense of this, but if we made that change, would it exacerbate some of the issues in that parking lot? I mean, where would you anticipate those cars would go then, if there was no parking there? Would they go out into Hazel Street?
I think most of them are at the Ball Diamond at night. I think they're at that northern Ball Diamond.
Where would the cars go? Where would those displaced?
Overflow parking.
Most of them are parking for the city right here. The majority of them.
Yeah. No, I guess I'm wondering, are there already concerns about some of the space in the lot there from the boats and the trailers, the boaters and the trailers?
Yes.
So those cars would get pushed to.
Could somebody show us the new boat parking areas just briefly up there, kind of up on the map maybe?
I don't know if I'm very.
I mean, it's changed this year, so I'm not even.
It's almost even with the sailboat launch now.
Okay.
So if our.
We added 18 spots, which resulted in losing 36 single stalls. So we lost 36 single-car parking stalls.
So here's the first landing, here's the second landing. We go almost, like these used to be the existing trailer stalls. Now we added 18 going this way to make sure there's still enough room to come out of this launch.
Yep.
And then, so like Ray said, 18 from right here to right here, we added 18 stalls. And then from this side of launch down is still all the single.
So that's basically what's left, is just that northern section.
And no matter what we do, we will never, ever have enough stalls for boaters or cars at this point. We just don't, I think the number of boat launch stalls, or I think the number of complaints from the boaters has gone down this year. I mean, I still see requests every day, and that means that they go down to Park and Utility and they fill out a form saying, I want to contest my ticket for this reason. I still see them every day. But it's been a lot quieter of a year as far as calls, like the everyday calls. So it's quieted down, but they're still there.
I think, it sounds real good, but we know why, because of the Ball Diamond. I think we'll push it off on staff and see what they can come. I mean, it's real, Jim says, we don't want no parking on there. Okay, but now we don't know what to do about it. So I think if you can come up with some kind of an answer, I mean, you guys are down there all the time. If you can come up with something that, time limits, like you say, we're starting in April already. He says June, July, and August. I mean, we're starting in April already. Somehow we got to, and maybe we won't be able to do it. I don't know. If there's some way to do it, fine, but I think it's more or less, I would like to see staff come up with something that, we aren't going to do that, we aren't going to vote on anything tonight anyway.
Right.
We aren't going to get it done this summer. It's not going to get done. But we got time to come up with something that's at least halfway decent, because right now we're just.
And we don't have the money to widen the road. And
we're coming up with no idea. We're just adding more fuel to the fires that we're doing.
Anybody else?
I would support it, Jim.
I would think that, we already took parking away from the spots for the Ball Diamond already. And now we want to take away more? I just can't see that. I think if we're going to take some away, we've got to add someplace that's close. And that, when we do that parking, that's on the north side of that diamond.
How far down the road is that?
Well, we don't know, but I mean, I can't see us taking.
We are going to be alive. So, okay, we'll go from there.
But I just can't see us taking away more from the baseball people or softball people. We've taken away some already for the boaters, which we needed to do. but I can't see us taking away any more.
Well, that's what I mean. If Ray and them come up with something where we can't do it, then we can't do it. But right now, we're sitting here just kind of,
Back and forth.
yeah, it's not,
I think, like I said, I think it's a safety concern. You know, I think one thing of boat parking in the lots is one thing. This you're getting into a safety concern, you know, of trail users, of people trying to, you know, only one car fits down there at a time. And when cars come in and you can't see, when it's busy, you can't see whether you want to turn off a Hazel and come on the Seaward Trail. If there's cars parked and you've committed, and all of a sudden you pull in and somebody's coming out of the lot the other way, you're both facing each other, and two cars don't get by each other there.
We got that some on our city streets.
Yeah, what about one-way traffic in that area?
We talked about that before. I think I agree with Terry. Let the staff mull this over a little bit, come up with some ideas, and
It's the only thing, if it was something that moved forward, I think we need to have it consistent with what's already there, which is, you know, no parking. I think it reads April 1st through October 31st after 5 p.m. I think that's what it reads, the current signs, like the single versus double stall stuff. So I think it would have to be certainly consistent for whoever, the police or the rangers or whoever's going to monitor it. It would be good to be consistent for everybody's sake. If it's something we move forward with.
And maybe that is a good point, because even though there is a school event going on, by then the park is getting use. And even though, yes, we would like to be able to provide parking for the school for those events, but we have safety issues now. People are in the parks, they're using the parks, and maybe it isn't the best place to have people parking at that time of night. You know, because it's busy.
Can we just get a consensus tonight? Do you want us, is it something that this board feels no parking should be on both sides, north and south? If there's a consensus, then we can try to kick it around and come up with a way to accommodate that.
I would go for it as long as we come up with
A way to accommodate.
a good solution for it, yeah.
I like your April.
Okay.
I can see the point. There's no room. I mean, at times there's
Right.
no room. But if there's nothing you can do about it, then there's nothing you can do about it. Like Bill said, we got city streets that are the same way.
you got some narrow streets. You're going down one way. Car coming this way can't get through.
So then what we should do is make a motion to postpone this item, and that'll give us some time to work on it and bring it back at a later date.
Yeah, so you can meet with these other department heads and that stuff and actually decide, like, Jenny knows that to ask who's going to enforce it.
It doesn't matter, I'm just wondering.
I like Jenny's idea, the one that would be consistent, the April through, you know, those dates, that, you know, at a time limit, like, you know, for consistency. That seems pretty good, something like that, but, you know, staff could go back and mull this over, and plus, Ray, you said you wanted to talk anyways to some of the other areas. So I'll make a motion to lay this over.
Postpone.
Postpone, excuse me.
Okay, need a second?
Yeah.
Barry, any further discussion? Trish, call the roll. We find it?
Fitzgerald.
Aye.
Gierens.
Aye.
Gillespie.
Aye.
Michelson.
Aye.
Rule. Schussler.
Aye.
Wooler.
Okay, that concludes park business. Seeing all our citizens have left, we don't have citizen statements. We can move on to directors and staff report. And there is a 5-minute rule, Ray.
I'll be quick. Just to give you an update on Bauman Park, I did talk to the playground consultant today, or the playground vendor, and because of the wet spring that they're having, their projects have gotten pushed back, similar to what we're facing. But right now, they're looking at Bauman Park, the play equipment being installed the first or second week of September. We were hoping that it would be in sometime in August, but again, they have a number of projects that have gotten pushed back. So we're looking at September to have that completed. If you haven't seen in the newspaper or heard it on the radio, we have lost all of our wolves at the zoo. Not lost, but we had to put the last one down within the last couple of weeks. And it's a decision we had to make, just like you have to make with a family pet when their quality of life disintegrates and there's health issues going on. So we had to put down our final wolf. Chad and our zoo staff are working on trying to locate some wolves. It's not not easy to do. What we're trying to do is find some younger wolves so that we don't have some older pack or older wolves coming in and then having to do this in the next couple of years again where we have to go through the same process. So we are placing phone calls throughout the United States trying to look for some wolves that are in captivity that we might be able to bring in. Our hope is that we'd have some in here by the end of the year, but it may not be, depending on what we find for availability. What we're doing at this time is using this time to do some upgrades to the wolf exhibit that we've been working or hoping to do. And as long as we don't have any wolves in there, we're able to get in there right now and do some upgrading.
Ray, can I ask just one question? Have any of the wolves ever reproduced at all that we have ever had in captivity? I don't know how many years it's
Jenny,
been.
I think when we get them, we don't want them to reproduce based on the size of the exhibit.
Okay. I was just curious.
Yep. And then the final item, we are working on the zoo master plan. Just like any other plan, the zoo master plan was last updated in 1999, and we have a recommendation going to the city manager on a consultant that we're looking to bring in to work with us and the Zoo Society and the Parks Board on updating our zoo master plan, which is in need of an update. So you'll be hearing more about that, and we'll bring more of that information to you as we start working through that process.
Are you
I'm
Chad
done.
now?
Nope. I updated for Chad. Chad
Okay.
does some of that as well.
All right. Landscape, Bill.
Okay, I don't have a whole lot. I just want to kind of get you up to date what the forestry group has been working on. As usual, sign clearance, pruning, and removals continue throughout the summer. We've been doing a lot of work on the roundabouts and traffic islands. As some of you may have noticed, we redid the Wisconsin-Ohio medium at the bridge this spring, and so that was kind of a bigger project and it looks a little nicer. Currently, we're working on treating the ash for emerald ash borer as a preventative. And to date, at the end of the day today, we've treated 176 trees. So the response from the neighborhoods has been great. People have been coming out and are very receptive to it and very positive. So that's kind of refreshing to know that everybody's appreciating what we're doing out there. So we've got a little ways to go on that project yet, but the weather has been very conducive to the uptake of the product. So this treatment will provide us with 3 years efficacy and protection. So we don't have to treat every tree each year. So this will take us through a 3-year rotation, and then next year we'll treat another block of trees as well. So we're feeling pretty good about the process. It's been going without any hitches. So I got to say that the crew has been really good in working with the residents out there and getting the application completed. Yesterday we had a volunteer group do some shoreline cleanup, primarily at the Shoreline Buffer Project at the north end of Menominee Park, which we've discussed in the past here. They have been doing a routine cleanup at that location, so they had about 20 volunteers out there yesterday and did a real nice job getting some of the weeds out of the planting and picking up all the debris and everything like that. So that's turning out quite well also. We had a little bit of mortality on some of our tree planting over the course of the winter, so we've pulled a lot of the small trees that didn't survive, and we're hoping to work with the foundation on getting some replacements in some time in the future there for those that we lost. And that's essentially it for my areas.
Okay, thank you, Bill. Jenny, Revenue Managers, report.
It's been an interesting year. We've had a lot of changes in staff this year, just due to people who've been with us for a really long time, who in the middle of the season found other jobs, things weren't working for them anymore, their health or whatnot. So it's been a year of a lot of staff turnovers, which has been really challenging. In May and June, numbers show that we're up at the amusements and concessions in the zoo. The temperatures have been cool, of course, so that usually always happens. The concessions, train, and zoo have been doing well. Numbers are up compared to last year in May and June. The pool is another story. We were down in June. We had really, really seasonally low temperatures, of course, for the pool. So hopefully that'll look up here in August for us. But we were definitely down in June for the pool numbers. Our events this year, we've got caught with a lot of rain. Our Easter event got rained out. Our first Snooze the Zoo, we got rained on. Pretty much every event we've had this year, we've had a lot of rain, so we're dealing with that. Surprisingly, though, I mean, numbers have still managed to be up there considering the weather we had, and same thing with revenues and sponsorships and things. So, but we're just continuing trying to fundraise for a lot of events and get them marketed. Right now, this is our Leach brochure that is done now. So our Tuesday night concert series are in full swing as of last week. So join us tomorrow night if you have nothing going on. But we have some good people playing down at the Leach on Tuesday nights for the next 5 weeks. So this is the third year of that event, sponsored by Citizens First. And so every year we see growth in that event. It is great that it's a free event for the community. So we do see an increase in numbers, and hopefully that we just continue to see an increase in numbers for that event. And this event is a brand new event this year, coming up this coming Saturday. This is our first annual Touch a Truck event down at the Leach Amphitheater, and it also is a movie night. So we're playing the Lego Movie behind this Touch a Truck event. It's sponsored by Oshkosh Corporation in full, the event, so it's a free event for the community. So essentially it's an event where the kids, we're going to have, Oshkosh Corporation will have defense vehicles down there. We'll have fire trucks, dump trucks, mixers, you name it. The kids can climb on them, honk them, beep them, play with them. Zilgus is donating all this stuff for interactive stations. We're going to have stations where the kids can drive trucks and pea gravel and sand and playground wood chips and just different things they can do with trucks. We'll also have all construction-related games. We're going to have a wrecking ball that we're going to hang in like a little sound tower where they can kind of knock over boxes with it. We're going to do have hard hats where the kids can toss the balls in them. So we're really excited. We've gotten a ton of really, really positive feedback about this event, a lot of questions about this event. So it's coming up this Saturday. However, I believe it's going to be a big event, and it's really challenging getting volunteers in the summer when the kids are out of high school and the college groups are gone home. So if anyone's available or knows anybody who is, or anybody who has groups they're associated with that could help them out, send them down to the Leach on Saturday. I made a couple for whoever might be interested. We're definitely looking for help for that event. So running games, manning the interactive stations, volunteering on the trucks. We're going to have some of the street department trucks in addition to some of the parks trucks. And we do need to have a volunteer for safety reasons at every truck helping them on and off. So we're really excited about that one. And Johnsonville is actually sponsoring our meets for that event. Like I said, Oshkosh Corp is sponsoring the event. So it should be a great event. And as long as the weather holds out for us, we'll be ready to go. So other than that, just looking forward to, we got some events at the pool yet. We're coming up on our we have an Aqua Fiesta Days in August. We have a movie in August at the pool. And stuff like that. So it's been a good year, a very, very busy year, but just we just need the weather to look up for some of our events. So
Okay, thanks, Jenny. Golf course manager's report. Oh yeah, we want to hear this.
Well, I'll reiterate what Jenny and Bill alluded to. Weather's been everything this year. It's been a struggle to just keep the grass mowed, the turf conditions up to the level that customers expect. Haven't been able to move anywhere on bunker upkeep or drainage work that I'm scheduled to do. It's been just too wet to move any earth or trench anything. We're not getting things done that I planned to do. But on a brighter note, May was a little better than last year, as was April. However, June was down about $6 compared to 2013. Large part due to the temperatures and the nearly record rainfall that we had that month. We lost about 7 days to cart revenue and 2 days to beverage cart revenue, which amounts to about all of that $10,000 that we budget. At this point, July, however, is on pace to exceed last July by $10,000. weather and temperatures dependent, the golf course is fairly firm and very playable right now. So if we don't get inundated, we should be all right. And we've got this estimate includes a rather large outing, the largest of its history. So if that pulls off, the Tremble outing is unaffected by rain or cold, we should have a good July. The slow start to the summer was also exacerbated by the loss in time due to medical issues with 3 different employees, one broken hand, another internal issue, and then sickness. So we lost 3 people for the better part of 3 weeks, and then 1 permanently. So there was a little retraining involved there. Since for the last week and a half now, I think we're back. 2 of the 3 are back, and anticipating the 3rd person coming back on Friday. On another bright note, the junior participation is up. Junior passes are up from 2 last year to 16 this year. So there's many more young kids playing. Young adult passes are up 50% from 10 to 15. Hope to pick a few up from college students that might come back. When they come back, they might join fall or 3 months. Finally, as far as the clubhouse goes, supplemental air conditioning units for the clubhouse have been installed effective last Friday. So the comfort level in the clubhouse has gone up considerably. And we're moving forward. The remainder of the heating and air conditioning project is yet to go to bid, but we're looking for that in the next month or 2 so that we can get that project online and get the system functional before November. Overall, though, it's been a trying year, and we're struggling through it right now, but everybody has been patient, and I feel like from the reports I've heard, most people are fairly considerate, and they're happy with the conditions that we've been providing, so we're looking forward to a dry July.
As long as Jenny doesn't have any questions.
Yes.
Okay, any questions for any of the staff members? Okay, thank you. That concludes staff reports. Our next meeting is August 11th. I will not be here. I have an outing in Lake Geneva, golf outing. And that is also the month we elect new officers. I'm declining now.
Oh, boy.
Because I know how people get railroaded around here. So keep that in mind. Anybody interested in taking chair, if Terry wants to step up and get a new vice, that'll be good. So we're looking for a motion to adjourn.
Take a motion, we adjourn.
Terry, second by Vic. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much.